All right, so I'm just Eli, stupid dog, and this is the third chapter of Uncle Dinner and Thunder Top. So Uncle Dinner was settling in. The man, myself, the dog, Uncle Dinner, and we were not yet introduced to Thunder Top, the squirrel that lived in the breast pocket of Uncle Dinner's denim coat. But anyways, Uncle Dinner was sitting there and he was slugging the bourbon. Once he finally heard that click, he got that warm feeling. He didn't know what was going on around him. He was a different person. Something, like I said, something clicked in his brainoid and he was like, oh, whew, thank God. I was drinking that Genesee cream ale. I think I'm immune to Genesee cream ale. I can't get enough Genesee cream ale into my gullet to catch a buzz anymore. But this bourbon almost instantaneously warms the cockles of my heart. The man was like, don't worry about it, Uncle Dinner. You know what? All my bourbon is your bourbon. Uncle Dinner looked at him like he was a cutthroat pirate, and he almost was saying, I already know all your bourbon's my bourbon. All your bourbon is my bourbon, you stupid, retarded, half-asshole son of a bitch. But anyways, Uncle Bourbon, he had a mean streak, but that's why he didn't do so well. Every time, not Uncle Bourbon, but Uncle Dinner. Uncle Bourbon is a distant relative. We'll bring him up in the latter story. Anyways, Uncle Dinner, he looks over, he says, what's for dinner? The man says, I'm already on top of it. Don't worry. We have a lot of hors d'oeuvres. We have a 6-course dinner. It's all going to be good. And Uncle Dinner started licking his lips, licking his chops. And the man saw it. He's like, don't worry about it. Just keep drinking your bourbon. I'm going to have a few, macadamia nuts pulled out. A few fresh caught wild caught sardines coming out. Don't worry about it. We're going to have a lot of beautiful food before we hit the hard part of it. And then it's going to begin with sausage, greasy sausage, and it's going to end with kielbasa. In between, it's going to be healthy food. There's going to be leeks. There's going to be shards of cucumber. There's going to be eggplant. There's going to be little pieces of, whatever, fish gravy. Don't worry about it. But it's going to finish up with something that's going to make you wild with, envy. It's going to finish up with some whatever. I don't even know. It's going to be so good you won't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then tomorrow starts all over again. It's a movable feast, Uncle Dinner. Uncle Dinner looked at the man and he's like, that's why I came, buddy. That's why I drove that beautiful powder blue station wagon across 16 states to be here. Because I was a little down on my luck. I was having a hard time. I was living in a cardboard box on the riverbank. I was begging for dimes just to try to get a few bananas or something. And the man, he looked at him, he was like crestfallen. He's like, really, Uncle Dinner? And Uncle Dinner was like, no, you stupid bastard. I don't do that good, but I do better than that. I at least could always get a can of soup. Maybe I could always open up a can of condensed, unwarmed, condensed soup, whatever. But anyways, they both start sipping their bourbon a little bit more aggressively because Uncle Dinner's, his life story was a little bit of a downer. And after they got about 3 sheets into the wind, Uncle Dinner, he looks over at them and says, hey, you ever hear about Uncle Beatrice? And the man said, Uncle Beatrice? And Uncle Dinner says, Uncle Beatrice, Aunt Beatrice, Aunt Beatrice, she had a big caboose. She had a nice, beautiful, fragrant caboose. She was buxom all over. She was a thin-waisted, buxom person. And the man says, I never knew Aunt Beatrice. Turns out Aunt Beatrice was a murderess. She murdered her husband because he was having an adulteratous, fornicacious relationship with his secretary. She murdered him by garroting him. She took a piece of piano wire, literally a piece of piano wire. She took her little girl's jump ropes, handles off her jump rope. She had fixed them and adhered them to a piece of piano wire. She cut out of their Steinway big, beautiful, these people were wealthy. Aunt Beatrice's husband was doing a good job taking care of the whole family. He had a Steinway. He had trainers. Aunt Beatrice had her own personal trainer. their daughter had their own personal jump rope trainer. But anyways, Aunt Beatrice, she took one evening when everybody was away at some kind of a school function, she feigned a headache. She said, I got a headache. I can't go to the school function. She took the handles off the jump rope of her daughter. She had fixed them or adhered them to a big long piece of piano wire she cut out of the Steinway in their big, beautiful parlor room. She cut a big, lanky piece of piano wire off the Steinway, and she made a garrote, and she garroted her husband. She was a murderess. No one liked her that much in the neighborhood, so instead of getting 6 years for her murder, she was sentenced to 12 years. She served 10 and a half years. I think then she moved to Albuquerque. I'm not sure. And then, so after they got done with that discussion, I was like, holy shit, I didn't know the man had this many relatives to begin with, let alone a murderess in the family. Anyways, Uncle Denner says, how about Norman Latex? And the man, he, as a little child, he remembered he had had a few dealings with Norman Latex. One time, Norman Latex tried to invite him down into the cellar of his manor house. His manor house was in the neighborhood of the man's manor house. I think this happened before the man had actually gotten the oxygen deprivation, so he was a little bit, he didn't have the oxygen deprivation brain injury from the swimming incident, the near drowning incident. So I think he was a little bit more wary. Norman Latex was like a few years older than the man. He's like 5 or 6 years older than the man. They were both in their teens. I think the man was actually 11. Norman Latex was like 16 or 17. He invited the man down in the cellar of his manor house. The man, he got a sick feeling in his gut. Something told him it was a sixth sense. Something, he's like, oh my goodness gracious, do not, whatever you say, if you get a gut feeling that somebody's trying to do you in, do not, just waltz down there into the depths of their depravity, And after they got done talking about that for a while, Uncle Dinner says, we all knew he was a serial killer. You could look one, like sometimes, the little boy's a gay boy, or maybe the little boy's, going to be a great athlete, or maybe he's going to be something, good businessman, or maybe he's just going to be a run-of-the-miller, just a treadmill walking Jose, just a good guy to have as your neighbor. We all knew this son of a bitch was going to be a serial killer. You understand what I'm saying? Anyways, they got done with the Norman Latex conversation, and I didn't hear about any of these people, but it turns out that, Uncle Denner, he had a long memory for the things that were going on. He says, whatever happened to Kelly Vantrus? And the man perked up right away. He said, Kelly Vantrus? I haven't thought about Kelly Vantrus in 27 years, maybe 36 years, somewhere between 27 and 36 years since I even thought or even had an inkling or had any kind of a remembrance whatsoever of Kelly Vantrus. Turns out Kelly Vantrus, this was a very loose neighborhood. They didn't have a lot of diversity. Kelly Vantrus was this stunning, beautiful, big-eyed African-American cheerleader girl, and she always walked around in a very short skirt to show off her beautiful, gorgeous thighs. She had dancer's thighs. The man was like, holy shit, well, I was in love with Kelly Vantrus, but back then, you couldn't really hang out with people that weren't in the same situation as yourself, let alone the same race. They didn't allow it. Then once I got the oxygen deprivation, that was it. Once I turned into a half of a moron, she didn't want anything to do with me herself. I was like, geez, you're black. You're a black girl in a white society. You don't even want to, try. You don't even want to think about it. She's like, I'm sorry, I could do better than this. And I was like, I always thought maybe it's because I only had a moderately sized penis, and she thought maybe that the thing was true, the stereotype was true, that maybe the black brethren, all her black friends, all her black cohorts, among them there would be a big penis dude that she's like, as long as we're going to be poor, at least I could have a guy with a big penis as my husband. I was like, I'm going to be poor. And she's like, you're white, so it's a good thing. Maybe I could reach a little further, but it'd probably be even worse. She said, I think I could do better as with a black husband versus a black girl with a white husband with a modest-sized penis. I think I'm going to go with the guy with the better penis. See what I'm saying? And so, anyways, that ended that part of the conversation between Uncle Dinner and the man. I was flabbergasted. I was like, "This is too much information, even for a dog that wasn't even able to keep his balls. Even if it were to do the dog, this is too much information." You know what I'm saying? Anyways, we were getting close to the end, and everybody's getting tired. They were drinking the bourbon so bad. It's like the man and Uncle Dinner's like, sometime or another, I got to take a nap. You know what I'm saying? But Uncle Dinner, he finally brought up the last one. He says, I was just wondering though, whatever became of Edward Listerine, the halitosis victimization? The guy. Whatever happened to Edward Listerine, the halitosis, what do you call it when you have halitosis and your breath could knock over a mule and everybody around you like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I love you. What you did. Oh, wow. Whoa, shit. What was that? What was that? Was that like a bat? Did a bat fly by and shit in my mouth? I mean, what happened? Was there a car wreck and 6 people died and they didn't discover them? They died, they fell into the bottom of the creek and then no one discovered them until their bodies were rancid? I mean, is this the way a vampire's asshole smells? I mean, Edward Listerine, the halitosis, whatever, he had the disease of halitosis. He was a high school basketball coach. Everybody thought he was a great guy. Everybody thought he was phenomenal. He not only did he go to states almost every other year with the basketball team, every once in a while he took the wrestling team to states. This guy was a big timer. He could have been something. He could have been a professional. He could have been the first, the guy from, whatever you call it, the guy from New England, Brad Belichick. They could have been the first Brad Belichick, one of those guys. Like, he was the coach, one of the greatest coaches of all time. He could have, no matter what he would have coached, it could have been incredible. But this guy had halitosis. You step up to him, you say, hey, I want you to shoot the ball this much with a little bit of arc. You're like, okay, coach, yeah, I'll shoot. Coach, coach? Did a skunk crawl into a pumpkin and die, and then once his body became liquefied into a certain kind of a rancid, stankin' pus, you drank it? What are you gargling with, rancid, stankin' skunk pus? What's going on, coach? I want to hear what you're saying to me. I want to follow through, but God Almighty, you got the halitosis. He was a halitosis victim. He was a guy who suffered from halitosis. But anyways, it didn't matter. This was a walk down memory lane for the 3rd chapter of Uncle Dinner and Thundertop. This was a situation where Uncle Dinner was leading the man down a memory lane that the man didn't even realize he had. He didn't even realize this was a memory lane. He didn't even understand that this was a true memory lane. He didn't even understand that this was a memory lane that was always there, and he had to tap into it. Once he tapped into it, he's like, I was wondering, it was like, it was so interesting, it was so awesome. It was like walking through a mansion, and into each room you discovered new pieces of artwork, new beautiful furniture, gorgeous, thin, wonderful people. But then you're like, oh, jeez, you know what? Slowly, it turned into a nightmare. I don't know. It's just, whatever. This was the 3rd chapter.